the product itself of Dubai is so diverse, and sending it out in a way that really truly does justice, that's what makes us sweat.
How has the pandemic changed tourism? And what is Dubai tourism doing to stay at the forefront?
I think the pandemic, if anything, it really tested the resolve and the way that anybody working in the tourism industry puts the agility to the real test. We've always spoken about agility, being nimble, being able to change with the ever-evolving dynamics of the industry. And I think coming off the back of a very successful 2019, we had 16.73 million tourists that came into Dubai, further strengthening Dubai's position as the number 4 most visited city in the world from international travelers. And then we started January and February of 2020 with about a 4.2% growth, very, very strong, powerful, moving towards the ever ambitious goal of being the number 1 most visited city in the world. Come March, the whole world went into lockdown. We were one of the first cities to shut down, strict curfews, in fact, launched new app just to ensure that people can only leave for emergencies and get the permission to leave for emergencies, and everything was done very well. But then, rather than disconnect from the world and wait to see what happens, we continued our dialogue and our conversation, using every single digital platform that we had launched over the years to engage with our clientele, with our fans of the destination, and telling them that it's a moment to stay at home, stay safe, while we discover further what's going to happen, and we will see you soon. So those are the kind of things that we did. But again, what was important, that we put into play the diversified marketing approach that we have. So once markets started to open back up again, it was a staggered approach, a staged approach. And then we started to pull every lever that we had across all of the different markets, working closely with the ones that were first on the green corridor list, and slowly ramping up our own messaging to ensure that more and more countries from a government to government level understand the safety measures that UAE and Dubai have in place, so that they feel comfortable sending and receiving tourists from both destinations.
Dubai Tourism has played the role of a brand ambassador for the Emirate. So how do you keep innovating?
From us, from an innovation perspective, it's only part of nature of the way that things are changing and evolving in the world. If you look at today, the consumers in the past 10 and 15 years, their platforms and their means of gaining information, accessing information, and also driving towards their decisions has changed quite rapidly and continues to do so as well. So I think for us, it's very important to understand the landscape, but also, more importantly, build relationship with those who are making these changes happen. We have very strong partnerships across the board, across the world, across all of the different platforms that are important for us, giving us a much better chance of reaching and creating that window between the end consumer and the destination, and being able to deliver our messages to them upfront. We've also been able to update our own means of utilizing these platforms and channels, and not just becoming dry in the way that we serve the content, but making sure that every single piece of asset that goes out, talking about the key propositions that are relevant to the audiences, is delivered to them in the way that actually makes sense to them as well. So it is bespoke to a certain degree. It isn't a broad brush stroke across what we do, because again, the product itself of Dubai is so diverse, and sending it out in a way that really truly does justice, that's what makes us sweat and makes us more focused on making sure that we're not doing a disservice to what Dubai's colorful variety of options are, but also making sure that it is delivered in the right manner to the right audiences.
What role does technology play in this?
Technology today is and will continue to be even more important as we progress. It is about not just the platforms, but it's also about understanding how we're utilizing and capitalizing on them. So one thing is about making sure that the messages are getting out there to the right audience at the right time, but also what we do with those messages. So if I just give this as a real life example, during the pandemic, when the lockdown happened, we started a campaign that focused on the health and well-being of people around the world, right? Our audience and stuff, making sure that that is the primary message that goes out. Being in sync with what they were going through emotionally, right? The fear of the unknown. A lot of people might be also at their homes alone, in an apartment alone, not knowing what's going on around them. The whole world is locked down. So we started showing them beautiful images of Dubai, images that they're used to seeing, but empty. Highways are empty, the beaches are empty. And it was a very emotional message just telling them, look, till we meet again, let's just make sure that we are focusing on ourselves, our well-being, and let's just think about the beautiful opportunities that exist post-lockdown and post-pandemic. That created dialogue. So that technology gave us a platform to be able to exchange and have a conversation with those individuals. And as we were able to get them through this emotional journey, we started to see that people now are starting to get a little frustrated of being behind those four walls and not being able to go out and stuff. They start searching and dreaming about the next destination. So what we did was we immediately rode on that wave, and we created a follow-up message that's called Ready When You Are. And it was a bit more playful now. So getting that emotion into a bit more of a cheeky kind of a place, we started to show them images of people practicing putting golf in their living room while empty golf courses are being perfectly manicured, waiting for them when they're ready to travel as well. So things like that, again, garnered a lot of interest and engagement, and again, dialogue. So we're monitoring the conversations with the assets that we're pushing out on these platforms, but also then monitoring how search for Dubai is also going up. So yes, we want to become the #1 most visited city, but that doesn't happen overnight. So we want to make sure from an awareness perspective, we're actually becoming the most sought after destination to begin with. So all of these dialogues and platforms gives us information to show and indicate that everything that we're doing actually is taking us down the right journey to be able to then eventually move them down the funnel and into conversion as well.
What is the direct and indirect economic contribution of Dubai tourism to the economy?
It's safe to say that from the beginning, Dubai was almost never reliant on oil. So trade and tourism were actually the core fundamentals and the foundation that Dubai's economy was based on. So I think when you look at it from an impact side, it's very difficult to put a number to it, because when you're talking about bringing tourists in, for us right now, we're looking at 16.73 million tourists that came in. We're talking about tourists that come for leisure, for business, and for events, right? You're talking about the impact that has on the hotel industry. You're talking about it from booking of halls and venues to have these events as well. And we're talking about events, you're talking about MICE events, all the way through to events and large-scale events like Expo, that's happening as well. And you're also talking about other things, which are like more niche events, whether it's destination weddings, for example, which Dubai is becoming extremely popular for. So the impact of what we're doing from a tourism perspective is so varied that it touches across every single segment of the industry. Hence why when we actually launched our strategy in 2013, it was very clearly mapping out every single fundamental player from the private and public sector that will be contributing to this, playing a role within that strategy, because they're the ones at the end who will be benefiting from this strategy as well. We had 68,000 hotel rooms at that point in time. Today we have close to 138,000 hotel rooms, with more in the pipeline. And these hotels are having one of the most successful occupancy percentages compared to anywhere else in the world. And the variety that you have from 5-star all the way down to 3-star, but still maintaining the service levels that people expect from Dubai, regardless of the star that they're staying in. All of these things are private sector's contribution towards the vision of becoming that city that everybody seeks to visit and does come and visit as well. So the contribution is actually quite broad across all of these touch points. And then if you look at the propositions from the attractions, whether it's the amusement parks, you're looking at the excursions, you're looking at the restaurants, you're looking even from the health and wellness side of things of tourism, you can see how big the impact is on the GDP.
MICE is integral to Dubai's tourism. Is there a focus on developing a hybrid ecosystem to host events in the city?
As a segment, business tourism is quite important, and events, right? So MICE in general, Dubai has always been very successful when it comes to exhibitions, amongst the best in the world, definitely top in the region. And also specifically when you look at conferences as well. If you go back to, I think it was around 2003, when Dubai won the bid to host the IMF for the first time, a lot of people were uncertain on Dubai, because again, Dubai was fairly unknown within that space at that time. How would Dubai be able to manage something as complex as the IMF, with the security logistics and logistics of the event as a whole in itself? Not only did Dubai deliver, but they delivered so successfully in the IMF's own admission. So I think for us, that really put Dubai all of a sudden on everyone's map. And then off the back of that, we were able to win more and more events. And big events, global events, competing with a lot of well-established destinations around the world. So it really gave us a chance to show what we can actually deliver on. And of course, all of that leads to bigger and bigger events. And even hosting Expo wasn't simple. The bidding process was lengthy. Again, competing a lot, amazing peers with so much experience. You know what I mean? That again, within their own spaces, we look up to what they do as well. And the fact that we could actually not just rub shoulders with them and compete with them, but win and host 192 pavilions, all these countries to come and celebrate in one place, and that place being Dubai, is something that we're very, very proud of. So obviously it will continue to be a big factor that we're looking at. Now, when it comes to physical and hybrid was something that people actually spoke about pre-pandemic. In fact, people said maybe exhibitions and conferences are a thing of the past, and people are looking towards a more digital space because it's easier, more convenient, it's actually more affordable for businesses, and so on and so forth. We heard a lot about it, right? And we were actually analyzing that space for quite some time. Come pandemic, everything goes online. Not just conferences, even our daily conversations. But the minute we started to open up, so we shut down in May, we put new policies and processes in place. We became very, very strict, of course. And then we measured it in May, by opening up for domestic tourism, even events. We started to actually measure how the protocol of people coming in there, how do we actually sanitize the place between events so that, things remain as safe as possible. And then we found the perfect balance between safety and business going on, business continuity. So once we got there, we started to have events. And we eventually, in July, August, September, we started having events here. And many of them being hybrid, more so online, less so in person. But there was a hybrid combination there. And then eventually it evolved into a bit more of a 50-50. ATM, which is the Arabian travel market within the travel and tourism, one of the biggest travel trade shows. When that happened, now, the naysayers from the past who were talking about things going digital, if they could hug one another, they would, because they missed that personal interaction. Hybrid is important, and it will help, because there are genuine circumstances where people will not be able to travel, and rather than miss out, they would rather connect digitally. But I can assure you, from personal experience, going through the pandemic, the world has seen, nothing replaces that face-to-face interaction and that face-to-face dialogue. But I think hybrid is definitely the model going forward, but not to replace the face-to-face.